Hey, what's good, what's good, what's good? Welcome to Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast, presented by DJ City. Big shout to DJ City. I'm one of your hosts, DJ Crooked. I got DJ Never here.
Yo, what's up?
I got DJ D Miles.
What's good, what's good?
And I got Jamie the Great.
Yeah.
And we got two special guests from DC, some of DC's finest. One of my favorite DJs ever, Jerome Baker III. And we got...
Peace.
What's up, man? And we got the Red Bull 3 Style U.S. champion, TRAYZE. What's good, fellas? What's good?
Hey.
What up?
What's up,
Thank
y'all?
you guys.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
I know how dad life is. You guys got the kids asleep, and we're over here on Zoom.
Yeah, look at TRAYZE. He's yawning.
TRAYZE, you got 3 kids, huh?
Yeah, man.
That's crazy. That's a lot of work. And you
it's
got
challenging.
You got them during the day, huh?
Yeah. So with COVID, schools are all closed.
Yeah.
So since, like the first week in March, I've had them like full time.
And then you're in Pennsylvania right now. You're in PA.
I'm at Uncle Phil's house, man. What are you talking about? Yeah, we just relocated to Hanover, PA in January for my wife's job. So I'm about an hour and a half from DC.
Okay, but
So not too far.
You just moved there this year, though. But you were pretty much like you were driving to DC. What were you doing? Going back and forth for gigs?
Yeah, it's like for the last year or so, I was DJing in the city still like 2 nights a month, more or less.
Okay.
And the other 3 weekends were like out of town normally.
Yeah.
Or just chilling at home. I've been trying to transition to doing more studio production, making music.
Jerome, you're like full-fledged into production right now too, man. You've been doing a lot of that shit, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like, we have time. Let's make the best of it.
Yeah.
So production was something that I say we as me and a bunch of different people have been working on probably since the end of last year, end of 19.
Yeah.
And then we just have been going full-fledged with it, like TRAYZE said, throughout this whole quarantine. And DC still completely, for the most part, shut down. So we're here and we're going to be focused on this for the foreseeable future.
Right. What's the climate right now in DC? I mean,
it's everything you see on TV. I mean, there's a protest every day,
right?
At the White House. So I live approximately 2 miles directly from the White House. Like if I make a right out of my building, walk straight down the street, my street ends at the White House.
Wow.
So every day there's a protest. Every Friday at 5:45, people line the streets with signs and honk their cars in support. I mean, it takes me 30 minutes to walk to the White House. So you see signs of support. You see everything. The city is not open yet, though. You know what I mean? They're still in quote unquote phase 1. And so restaurants, you can eat outside, but restaurants supposed to be 6 feet apart. I've seen people making like hookah lounges work. So that's pretty much the most social that people have had is these hookah lounges. And
people still share the hookah though.
I'm not.
I don't know, man.
I'm not there, G. I'm not there. But there's also
your own tip.
Exactly. But the protests are also serving as like social gathering. I mean, they're social, obviously, but it's like, yo, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's go to the protest. You know what I'm saying? And that's wow. I saw the whole staff from Commonwealth at the protest a couple Saturdays ago. I hadn't seen some of those guys in 3 months.
Wow.
You know?
Shout out Commonwealth.
Yeah, shout out to Commonwealth. And so it's just DC is watching the rest of the country and wants to reopen, but it's kind of like they know better because there's just, I mean, Virginia's open. Virginia's just such a big state that there's different phases depending on the city that you're in.
Yeah.
And different parts of Maryland are operating under different phases as well. But DC is completely in like phase 1, like not a lot of personal interaction going on. Masks are still required in grocery stores and a lot of places, 6 feet apart, limited capacity, the whole 9.
You're from Phoenix, Arizona. How does it feel looking at like kind of the Southwest and the West Coast and your hometown, and you're seeing the numbers, these COVID numbers go crazy? They're going like, I think they're double of what New York was, and they're like 1/8 of the population of New York.
Yeah.
And New York numbers are actually down right now.
It's steady, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, well, they're the lowest out of almost all of the U.S. right now, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arizona locked in 4,400 new cases in the last 3 days.
That's crazy.
Solid.
That's crazy.
I'm completely, it depresses me, man. It hurts my heart because I know how it affects me. And I know I won't go see my mom, like see my brother.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Like my my daughter doesn't get to see her grandmother. I talk to my brother every day. I mean, you know, and Kel is just, he's into nightlife out there, but he's pulled back tremendously. He doesn't go out at all anymore.
Oh, he's not going out at all, but they're open. They're like that whole
Arizona,
Scottsdale, that whole like club and bar area is fully open, right?
fully open. And
Yeah, I just talked to Cutswell. He's DJing.
Really?
Cutswell's rocking, JR, you know, but unfortunately, I mean the governor just didn't make, there was poor leadership.
Right.
And as a result of that, you're seeing these cases go crazy, and the lack of leadership is trickling down in everything from the school systems to the restaurant and club scene. It's really depressing to see what's going on out there.
I feel like the West Coast and the Southwest had like a pretty mild. They got hit pretty like mildly with COVID-19, and so when they reopened, I feel like they were rushing to reopen, but you know they didn't take the necessary precautions. And even here in Vegas, no one's wearing fucking masks. I mean, people look at me like I'm crazy for wearing a mask. Like
goddamn right.
Yeah, it's almost like some shit, you know. And it's weird because in New York, if you walk around without a mask, like motherfuckers are gonna yell at you and curse you out. Like, why the fuck ain't you wearing a mask?
Yeah, I mean, DC people will walk across the street from you if they're not wearing a mask. Like I go on a walk with my daughter every day. We're wearing masks. So people will cross the street and kind of get out of our way. And it's like, you should. Like, she's more important than you are. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Cross the street. But in terms of Arizona, I think what happened too is you're absolutely right. Like there was a low reported case to start. So they kind of rushed to reopen. And when they rushed to reopen, they attracted just a lot of people. Floyd Mayweather was coming out of there, and a bunch of people from California were going down there for like Memorial Day, and I saw like 40-ounce Van was there this weekend, and like so you got all these people that are just like Arizona, and all their minions and their following are gonna flock there. And the next thing you know, you've just got these numbers that are like out of control, and you know, now they're paying the price of it with the infections going crazy.
During Memorial Weekend, I think every major promoter, club person I knew was in Arizona partying.
Right.
And I was just like, yo, this is bad.
Yeah.
There you go.
Crazy.
There's a lot of correlations too to the reopenings, and if you have a Republican governor.
Break that down. Explain.
So like if you want to use Arizona as an example, you know, they have a governor who's Republican, and you know, a lot of these guys are more inclined to answer to the corporate interests, and you know, businesses want to be back open, and they're going to fall in line with that, as opposed to listening to like science and public health officials that are saying no, too fast, you know.
And they're also getting
Oregon. They're going to shut down. They're going to re-shut down next week just because they had another spike after being open for like 2 days.
It was funny. I was talking to a stripper that strips out here in Vegas, and she sorry guys, she relocated to Arizona just because strip clubs in Arizona are open, and she's making a shit ton of dough over there.
Gotta go where there's work.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean they just did a bad job, man. They're gonna shut down soon too, though. Like I talked to Kel today.
Yeah,
and he was saying that it's almost like they're just waiting to get the word about when they're gonna shut down again, because I mean we've all seen these numbers increase crazy.
It's more dangerous when it's transient, right? When you have just people coming in for 2-3 days and leaving, like literally, like either contracting COVID or
even getting on a plane is risky.
Yeah.
You want to be cooped up in a metal box, breathing everyone else's air for 3 hours, 4 hours? Absolutely not.
Yeah, we know a couple of DJs that are actually taking out of town gigs already. Like they're ready to go on the road. Yeah.
I had a homie that flew out to Utah, and he stayed over there for like 5 days or whatever, just because he wanted to play it safe. I'm like, dog, play it safe. You should have just stayed at home. Like,
there you go.
The extra shit, yeah.
There you go.
Are you guys gonna? You guys aren't looking to what do you call it? You're not gonna rush to go into work, right? Even if everything opens in July or August, you guys, what's gonna happen?
I'm chilling.
I'm definitely not, but I also have a spouse who supports the family,
Right?
and I'm on unemployment right now, so
Right.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah,
but it's sad because a lot of my homies that are full-time DJs, they don't have that financial footing to stand on. That they might be like check to check, and they're hurting really bad right now. So I'm not mad. Everybody has to make their own decisions, and it sucks that you have to kind of like play with your health like that.
Yeah, I just took my first gig since March this past Friday. And honestly, I went the week prior to that same location, and they were playing the social distancing card really, really tough. And when I was DJing, that shit went out the window, and there was a full dance floor, and I was paranoid as hell.
Wow.
I was spraying the alcohol, this little bottle, every 5 minutes in my hands and all surroundings because I was just that fucking paranoid. It's scary, man.
Well, this weekend it seemed like the floodgates really opened in Las Vegas. I'll be honest. Like I had friends in town that were just randomly calling me, like, "Hey, I'm in Vegas. I got a hotel room," and I'm like, "What? What are you doing here? Like, what are you doing?" They're like, "Oh, the rooms are cheap. The flights are cheap. We just decided to come out and have fun. Like, what's open?" And I'm like, "Yo, there's no clubs open. There's no pools. You might be lucky to just hang out at a hotel lounge bar and maybe get a drink with your friends." Wow. But they were like trying to meet up with me, and I'm just like, "Yo, this is crazy." Like they really feel like it's just open now and it's all good.
How are you guys feeling about DJs going back to work? I remember TRAYZE, you had a couple of tweets probably earlier in the year, kind of saying it was like irresponsible for certain DJs when COVID was kind of spreading in the US. You were saying that it's kind of irresponsible for DJs to take work. Yeah, probably like early March, right? Around there.
Yeah, because some states were shut down and others weren't.
Yeah.
And the states that were not shut down were having like big spikes in cases.
Yeah.
And just from that alone, like protect yourself, protect your health, protect others. Like I'm never gonna be mad if you need to go to work. Like this is our livelihood too. So but I'd have to go back and like read the tweets to make sure I wasn't like tripping. I definitely spoke on that topic.
I think you and I bumped heads a little bit in the beginning just because I initially don't blame the DJs for taking work. And I think we're all in agreement. I actually blame, I blame the venues, and then I blame the city, and I blame the state, and then, and everyone outside of that, because DJs are the little guys. If they're not going to hire you, they're going to hire somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's also one of those things. I was talking to a couple homies as well. It's like if that nightclub asks you to DJ and you're not going to DJ for them at, I don't know, like at a lower rate during a tough time that they're having right now, like they're going to be like, "Yo, this is rough times. You're not going to look out for us and DJ during, the reopening." I don't know if we're going to be loyal to you later on when everything kind of is back to normal. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's fucked up. But at the same time, obviously, it all depends on your relationship. And we all know that this whole business is about building those relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
That relationship is solid and you're good. And you can even back that up with a contract. You can be like, "Hey, everyone's hurting. I need money too.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll cut my rate for like 6 months. And then when everything's back to normal, we got to go back to the regular rate."
Right.
Got it.
And you can get it in writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, DC is looking like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, back in March, that weekend of March 3rd and 4th, I think it was the first weekend in March. I actually voluntarily stayed home because everything I was reading was looking really, really bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get sick, like period. And I was like, I don't need to come. And my first Friday and first Saturday of every month were in DC. Normally, like I had 2 regular gigs monthly, and I passed them off to a homie. I was like, "Hey, do you want these?" I don't feel comfortable going. And literally the next week they shut it down.
Wow.
Crazy.
And I had friends that actual weekend that was like, "Yo, this is the last weekend we're going to be DJing for a long time."
Damn, he kind of called it. Jesus.
And I was like,
"Yeah, I played that weekend. That was like March 14th, I think."
Yeah.
And,
14th.
So Well, I work for the same company Friday, Saturday. So they cut the openers Friday, Saturday. They're like, hey, it's going to be slow this weekend. We need you to rock the whole night. All right, cool. It's like 11 to 3. No big deal. And, you know, this is like black party. So like nobody's showing up till like 1:30 anyway. So I'm like, all right, bet I get to play what I want to play for like 2.5 hours. Like, y'all gonna get these K-Tronada jams all day. Like, I don't even care.
Them, all the remixes.
Every single one. And the nights turned out to be fantastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was super cracking. Like, you know, the sales were through the roof, the whole nine. The Sunday, pulled up to the club at 11 o'clock again. And this is when I think things were a little bit more mainstream in terms of things need to be shut down. And I remember all of DC being like, it was like a ghost town. It was absolutely nobody out.
Yeah.
It was like March 15th, around that time, I believe. And, you know, it's been like that ever since. And like, I've been taking these walks at night and I see people wanting to they'll get their to-go drinks and they'll stand outside the bar and drink them and stuff like that. But there's no activity out here right now. And it's just something that needs to be accepted and keep it moving because we're not going to be in the clubs in DC probably until the end of the year or maybe even next year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's scary because I keep telling all these DJs to take advantage of unemployment or the POA. Like Nevada just got the POA like 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, like
about 3
like
weeks.
in 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and then Cali, I know, was like probably a month or so ago, probably before that. Some of these guys that I know got unemployment for like 5 to 10K, and
a lot of people got that.
Yeah,
a lot of people they got like the unemployment from the top of the year.
They got it
Going
from
going back to March, like when COVID first hit.
Yeah, they had
that second week of March.
I got back pay from I claimed from like March 6th on, and I got back pay. It took 7 weeks to kick in though.
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah, but I got all the back pay in one lump sum, and then the weekly kicked in after that.
Yeah,
right. And then you just have to file every week and go on the site.
You just reminded me.
You gotta go on there.
File for this
tonight.
last week.
Yeah.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday, 6 o'clock. I'm there.
Me too, man.
Yeah, Devin knows good.
Soon as I wake up, I'm on our computers sending out claim.
That's the first thing he does.
They laced me with a debit card.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Goes up on the debit card.
Yeah, DC has that too. We got the debit card in the mail, and then it just transfers every afternoon right to my regular bank account.
Damn. Nevada got a rush card too. I think we got one of those.
The rush card?
The rush card.
We got the rush card
We
too.
went from
man.
wanting the black card to getting the sunflower card.
Everyone should try to file. I mean, what do you call it, Jamie? You haven't filed yet, right? You
I filed today, actually.
Okay,
I
good
got
shit.
a walkthrough by DJ So. Shouts to DJ So. He helped me out, did the walkthrough, and it was so I filed today, and hopefully it kicks in soon.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, I'll wait for that 10K by the half of the year or whatever. And down.
I think it takes a while for Cali, but you're gonna get that shit.
I
I had consulted with a couple of lenders about the PPP loans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one guy from United Bank told me that he ran my numbers from my taxes from last year, and he was like, dude, you're just going to get more money from unemployment. Just do that.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah, look at Chase's face.
I mean, the checks, look, the checks suck compared to what I'd be making DJing every weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
at least you're getting something.
Yeah.
I can buy groceries.
Exactly. Pay your mortgage.
Get the diapers.
I ain't gonna front, man. I ain't gonna
We
front
got
that.
one still in diapers.
That shit. I know that shit helped a lot of DJs. I was talking to a bunch of them, and it just relieved a bunch of stress that they were feeling. You know.
Did anybody
most definitely.
Did anybody think about being irresponsible and just buying some other shit that you're not supposed to buy? Like you're like, oh, look at Jerome. Look at Jerome.
I can't. I got a daughter. I can't do that irresponsible.
I have a story about that. So in April, like mid to late April, when we were like starting to get heavy into streaming, I was having like the same issues everybody was having with trying to stream OBS and run all your shit off the same laptop. So I was like, well, the laptop I have doesn't have dedicated graphics, so let me look into buying a new one. And my homie, shout out to stylist Chris, he was like, Apple has a business lease and you can lease a MacBook Pro now, and it's like $100 a month, and you can get like the crazy maxed out one that is like $5,000, but you just lease it, and then in 2 years you get a new one. Wow. And I was like, all right, cool. So I called up the Apple business. It's actually like a personal consultant if you do the business route. And the guy straight up told me, he was like, because of the industry you're in, we have to instantly decline your application.
Wow. Really?
Because we know you're not working, and we know you're not going to be working for a long time. He said, if you're in restaurant, music, arts, film, TV, instant no. Declined.
Wow.
I don't care about your credit rating, money. And I was like, I can give you guys like bank statements and taxes for past years and all my Schedule C's. And he was like, doesn't matter.
Wow. That's weird.
Damn. They lost a lot of money out.
That's odd.
But he told me it's because for the last month, because this was like end of April, for that month, so many people were defaulting on their payments.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Why would they keep giving money out? Yeah. I'm not mad. I'm like, okay, I get it.
But that April was like I feel like April was a rough month for a lot of people. Like
that was the one.
That was new territory for everyone. I feel like people were still trying to get the footing.
That shit was rough. Like a lot of motherfuckers hit me up like, I don't know what to do. They were stressing out. They were like, I gotta move. I gotta move back home. Yeah, everything. It was just crazy in April.
And people thought things were gonna open up back in April, like in mid-April, towards the end of April.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, man.
But I think a lot of it too, though, is as morbid as it sounded, and it was as difficult as it may have been to hear. Crooked's been saying for a while, like, yo, y'all need to save y'all money, like. He's been saying this for a long time. And and listen, man, I listen to the podcast every week. I know what y'all talk. Y'all are the funniest dudes. And sometimes that message goes over people's heads. But, there's a silver lining into what he's saying. And it's like, I'm not blaming DJs for not being responsible with their money. Because, hey, I have 80 pairs of sneakers in my closet. So it's all good. I understand where we're coming from. Mm-hmm. But at the same time,
you're not paying full price, so let's get that out of the way. Let's keep it a beam. Relax. That 40% off is great.
Relax. Nevertheless, bro, Crooked, it's been one of them things where I was always taught that everything you get paid to put 30% away to save just for a rainy day.
Yeah.
Right. And the rainy day is here, and I've been able to do this for 10 years. Full time for the most part. And so I've been just adhering to that policy as much as I don't want to, that's what you have to do. And if that doesn't allow me to buy something or go out to eat or whatever the case may be, then that's fine. Because at a time like this, I'm able to sort of count my blessings and say that, hey man, I relied on myself. And, Crooked, like I said, he's been telling people this for a while now. You know what I'm saying? And you got to listen to when people speak, man. I mean, there's people to give you the knowledge and the understanding of what's going to happen. Like, listen, so that you're not always in such bad position,
That's motherfucking right, Jerome. Thank you,
but
Jerome.
But honestly,
word up.
But honestly, nobody's seen it. Nobody thought it was going to get this bad as it is right now.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Oh, man.
Crooked told us on top of the year, yo, save your money. It's election year. And we were just like, oh, it's going to be election year, whatever. So we didn't think it was going to be this shit.
Yeah. So, something always happens in election year with the economy, especially when a Republican is coming into office or is leaving office. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just inevitable. Some shit's going to go down. I mean, who could have ever... I mean, we're like in a borderline race war and a pandemic right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like... I was going to,
and then the government didn't really have an infrastructure in place to take care of independent contractors for unemployment. They had to like really do that on the fly, and I'm impressed they even did that in like a 2 month span. But I think before this, I don't think they ever had to deal with thousands of independent contractors needing financial assistance at once, and that was really like
don't give them too much credit. They did a fucking horrible job, and I have the receipts. If you look at every other country that's had to deal, like Germany actually handled it best. I can pull up the story on NPR. They compared how they took care of the working class there, and they already had the safety net in place for this, and nobody got hurt from this, or at least a very, very, very small percentage. Whereas here, it's like every man is on their own, and there's so many people that are fucked.
Yeah.
I definitely hear you, but like, I don't gas them up, man. These politicians are fucking awful.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys.
we were just talking, Crooked. We were just talking about it the other day. How I think a lot of companies are like hitting record numbers in like profit.
Yeah.
Right, because of the assistance.
Wild.
And then there's low overhead.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have.
Where'd that $500 billion go, Steve Mnuchin?
Yeah.
Where'd it go? And then the government says, no, we're not going to tell you who we gave it to.
Right.
Come on.
There's all kinds of shit going on with what do you call it? Hospital workers getting sent home, furloughed, and then hospitals getting assistance from the government, and then all the executives getting bonuses, and then none of the workers came back to get back to work. There was all types of shit going on. I mean, that's what a lot of these companies were going. Yeah. A lot of these corporations were doing that, where they were doing monster layoffs. They were just letting everybody go, getting assistance from the government. I mean, at that point, they have like almost little to no expenses, definitely no payroll at that point.
Right. And that's why part of the second part of that deal that they passed, they said that if a company was going to take money on the assistance tip, they had to promise that they were going to keep their current workforce until like September, and they weren't allowed to lay anybody off if they agreed to take money.
I personally know a dude in LA. I personally know a dude who requested assistance from the government, got the check. As soon as he got the check, he laid everybody off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Whack.
What a dick. Well, who am I to judge?
I mean, it's pretty fucked up, but at the same time,
Yeah, I have a question for Jerome. Jerome, on your episode when we had you on last year, you said that no matter what, DC never seems to take a hit economically wise. You have a lot of friends like struggling, like the outside of the nightlife business, like if they work at, I don't know, a regular 9-to-5 office job, are they struggling, or
everybody's fine. I mean, like I was getting noise complaints when I was DJing at home because people are home during the day working. Like people are okay. Like obviously our industry, they're hurting, but as you said, outside of this, there's so much government. Like I said, there's DC government and there's federal government.
Right.
Dude, I have heard nothing and seen nothing but people continuing to work.
It's a big bubble.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too with DC, because you have so many universities there. So you have tons of professors, student, like faculty, government faculty. So I was curious what the situation is with like all those people like in that university realm.
Some of the people that I know, like that I was playing basketball with or whatever, there were kids that went to like GW and stuff, and they had already paid their money, and so they were just told in the beginning of March that classes were done and were going online. But I haven't seen anything about like professors losing their tenure or like, people losing their jobs in that respect. I mean, again, nightlife is really the only thing that I've seen take a hit, because everybody else is just working from home. You know what I mean? Like people go out for walks 5-6 o'clock and the neighborhood is flooded, or people are out during the day taking walks because I'm on my hour lunch break. You know what I'm saying? But there's still, I mean, DoorDash and all those things are extremely busy. Like they're zipping all around the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like people seem to be doing, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, but from what I can tell, people seem to be doing just fine.
Yeah, all the restaurants are open for carry out and stuff. So everybody's still cooking.
Did you see any massive like closure in retail business, Jerome, over there in DC? Like,
yeah, all the stores are closed in that respect, right? So
no, but like close for indefinitely, like went out of business type of stuff.
Nah, nobody went out of business because a lot of people are relying on their online portals to get them through this, and then just, I mean, I can't speak for any, but I wouldn't be surprised if people are selling stuff on eBay. You know what I mean? If they're just moving stuff through whatever means that they have. Yeah. But you know what I mean? There's still clothes are still coming out. I mean, if some dunks come out, a store is just going to do an online raffle. So they're still going to get the money one way or another. You know what I'm saying? And everything is just shifted towards online raffles, and some stores, not in DC, but some stores that I've seen were doing like, you make a reservation, you can come shop in the store.
Got
You
it.
know what I'm saying? Like you 12 to 2, yo, we got the staff, mask, the whole nine. You can come to the store. We'll turn on some Future, and you can shop like it's normal. You know what I'm saying?
Appointment only, basically.
Appointment exactly. Yeah, I saw some stores doing that, and you know, I mean, people are surviving. I mean, we're what 3 months in right now, so they're surviving. You know, we'll see what happens 3 months from now, though.
Got it.
And just for a little background, Jerome Baker, you're like a manager at Commonwealth, which is like a streetwear sneaker shop. It's really a well-known, respected sneaker shop in DC. And I would go there all the time. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Cricket kicks it.
Yeah. I actually wanted to, TRAYZE, I wanted to talk to you because you've been like you've been like the DJ police. You've been like on a witch hunt, man. You're like the Untouchables, man. You're like Kevin Costner, the Untouchables, Elliot Ness, and all these DJs.
So I'm kind of stuck up here. And
he's the lead commander.
I can't be out protesting, so I'm just donating my unemployment money and letting these Twitter fingers fly, man. That's all I can do.
Yeah, Trey's been getting crazy on Twitter.
Yeah, Trey's been going after pretty much, you know, obviously with the Black Lives Matter movement in full throttle right now, and you know, there was talks of all of these EDM DJs or even Trump supporting DJs not speaking up on BLM.
Yeah,
and just kind of staying quiet.
I got a fucking promo email.
Oh, here we go.
2 days. Was it 2 days ago? 3 days ago?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was like Friday. From a white EDM DJ based somewhere in Europe. And the name of the song was Black Church. And the release date was fucking Juneteenth.
That's crazy.
You're going to put out a song called Black Church on Juneteenth? And you're a white come on, man.
He's asking for it, bro. He's asking for it.
That's just the latest one that I've been lighting up online.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter in real time. It was.
And I'm only gonna go after the white guys because it's the white people that need to like stand up and start being fucking allies.
Yeah,
kind of. So you're kind of checking.
This is not Black folks' problem and their responsibility. This is a white people problem.
Right.
The white people are the problem.
You see, like the way you're going about it on Twitter, you're relentless. You're really going after them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
saying? What do I have to lose?
I'm very impressed and I'm also shocked, but you're really going after them. And then I also got a question though. The way you're going after them, because you're going at them, you're kind of like, yo, like what the fuck is this? I need you to answer like right now. Why do you have a single called Black Church? Do you not know what the fuck you're doing? Do you not understand what's going on right now? And you're going at them like that. And you know, what has been the initial response when you've been going after a few DJs now, like 3 or 4? I don't know, maybe more. I haven't been
Good handful.
I don't know.
There's a list.
I don't know the list, man. I mean, you know,
I'm just calling a spade, man. Like this shit is so obvious. Like I'm not this stuff. It just falls in my lap. It falls in my lap.
It's too easy.
I'm not actively searching this shit out.
Yeah.
It's forward to him.
It's not hard work. It's easy. It's like that sushi joint at the mall where the sushi just comes by on the conveyor belt. It's right there. It's right there.
Easy.
So I got to
work for TRAYZE.
It's a fucking buffet of racism online.
And are you seeing it more in the EDM world? Obviously, kind of.
I mean, there's ignorance and stupidity everywhere.
Right.
I'm taking on the targets that I can deal with in my own way.
This is great.
I mean,
do you do any before you go at anybody? Do you kind of do the research and see maybe?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay,
I'm not gonna like come at somebody sideways before like I do my Googles because I tweet like every other day. Do your Googles.
Nice. Yeah, because I was just thinking sometimes you went illy willy with shit, but I'm glad you do the research.
Yeah, no, I don't want to look like an asshole.
Well, you're DMing them initially, right? You're kind of like, look, you should. What is this? You should think about what you're doing over here, what you're saying over here, right?
Yeah, or email, or like I'll hit them up privately.
And then at what point do they just kind of dismiss you, or they just kind of dismiss you initially? It's like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you get a response at all? And that's when you go to Twitter?
Yeah. Do you try to fix it internally before you take it to the streets, or
To the streets.
The bird. Before I jump on the bird. Yeah, I mean, generally I'll reach out, email or DM, and then be like, hey, this isn't cool. Like if we want to use the black church thing as an example.
Right.
I got the email promo in my promo email, just showed up in the inbox, and I was like, what is this? And I was just blown away at how disgustingly tone deaf that could be right now.
Yeah.
Did you listen to the track?
I saw his responses on Twitter.
And it took like
what did D-Miles say? What did D-Miles
Did
say?
you listen to it?
Did you listen to the track?
absolutely not.
He might have a message.
I have
It
not
might have a
pressed
message.
It might have a message. Right?
Well,
Sorry.
his response to TRAYZE on Twitter was basically
I wish I would have had a fucking racism bingo card. He hit every square. He hit but I have a black friend square, and like he hit all the squares.
Wow.
I would have been like bingo from the first 5 replies he sent.
He sent you a picture with all his black friends and himself.
No, but the point is, like, it took 10 of us replying to his replies to get him to see that he was wrong about this. And after like a half an hour of this, friends of mine were adding him and adding me and being like, yo, just let him put the song out with that name. Let him dig his own grave.
Right.
So he's gonna put it out.
No, yeah. He changed the name of the song and the release date because of me.
Smart.
That's all I wanted him to do.
Fucking Elliot Ness over here. You see him? Just taking motherfuckers out.
All I wanted him to do was change the song name and change the date. That's it.
Yeah, he got on the phone and said, I know who you are. I know what fight.
It's crazy because his response on Twitter was more focused on, my team has been working really hard on this.
My team. He's got like 340 followers on Twitter, so his team is working on it. Right. Okay, guy.
It's
my team. Give me a fucking break.
Do you think I've always wondered this? Is shame the best way to kind of like educate white people?
No.
It's not.
And actually, I'll get angry and I'll say some like, not like something out of pocket, but I'll say some like cancel culture shit online. And I have a good friend who always checks me, Adam W. He's a 3-style DJ from Canada. I think he won 3-style 2015, maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, he always says like, no, that's not the way. Like,
right.
Cancel culture, you have to like give them a chance to right the wrongs. And he put me back onto a podcast, and maybe you guys can drop the link with this podcast of a guy named Daryl Davis, who's from Maryland. Actually, he grew up in the DC area, and black guy. He convinced 3 members of the Klan to quit the Klan.
Wow.
Oh shit.
All through befriending them and finding common ground,
right,
and convincing them in a respectful, intelligent way that the shit they're doing is crazy and wrong and racism is bad, instead of like attacking and shaming and some of the tactics that I might use.
Right.
But check out the Daryl Davis podcast if you want to learn more. Like the second podcast is literally called How to Argue. And this applies to any arena of life.
Right.
Like you want to convince your mom to buy you a car, like anything. Yo, Daryl Davis has your answers.
Damn.
I mean, I'm being funny, but check it out.
I completely agree. I feel like the 2 magic words are always common ground. I really, really think that's how you educate, or you just make them realize people's ignorance. Is always trying to find a common ground. Because if, you know, sometimes when you attack somebody, they're always going to be on the defense. And then, you know.
Yeah, he talks about all this. And it's interesting that you mentioned ignorance, because he really breaks down the difference between ignorance and stupidity. And it's like the way he does it is so great.
I feel like there's definitely 3 levels. There's like racism, ignorance, and stupidity. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, like, specifically the ignorance and stupidity within racism.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay, got it.
I feel like nowadays everyone throws the racism. They throw racism, that word, around all the time. They're like throwing it all the time, and it's like, you know, when, like, let's say black people are talking shit to Asians, they're like, black people being racist, and I'm like, you know, technically black people can't be racist. You know, I think they're being prejudiced. You know what I mean? And some of the shit they might be saying might be ignorant, but it's not racist. You know what I'm saying? Racist is really dealing with power if you really analyze the word and where that word stems from. Yeah. But what we're seeing a lot of is prejudice. You know what I'm saying? It's like almost impossible for a quote unquote minority to be racist. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it's possible to have that prejudice, and no one ever says prejudice anymore. And I feel like in the 90s we said prejudice, like no one said racism. That was like a heavy word in the 90s to throw out there. You know?
I think all of that discussion is taking the eyes off the real problem in this country. Yeah, which is white supremacy. That's the problem.
Yeah, which is embedded in the system of what America, everything in America, every industry that we touch. Yeah, it's embedded in there. It's like,
yeah, and there's people that will deny it and explain it away in every level.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel having kids right now? I mean, obviously, TRAYZE, you know, your kids are so young. I don't know if you can have that conversation. You know, Jerome, obviously, you know, your daughter might be too young to have this conversation. But how do you guys feel with what you're seeing now? What's going on in the world? Like, how does it make you feel? Does it worry you about your kid's future? Does it make you actually feel better about what's going on now? It's kind of like, you know, all the ugly truth is coming out now, and maybe we can do something about it now. How are you guys feeling about this? Like looking into the future?
I don't think it's. I mean, my daughter's 7. I don't think she's too young. I mean, she has a painting that says "Rest in Peace, George Floyd" that I'm staring at right now. Wow. You know what I mean? And she's very aware of what's going on in the country, and we have very, very honest conversations. I mean, I'm not breaking it down to, you know, like things that are super, super specific per se, but I gave her a very basic knowledge and a very basic understanding of why she's seeing things like this happen, why people are honking their horns, why we're outside clapping, you know, Black Lives Matter, a very basic understanding. And she asked questions. And that's the thing about it is my daughter's just finished 2nd grade. So they're consistently fed information time and every day.
Right.
And now this is our new education. This is what we're learning about right now. So, you know, for me, I grew up in Arizona, as did my brother. So like when you're the only Black kid in your class every year for like the first 15 years of your schooling, you start to pick things up. You start to kind of understand things. You start to realize like, okay, you know, or like certain girls you can't date because their dad doesn't want you to come to their house and things of that nature. Or you know what I'm saying? Like kids pick up on things really quickly. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think that, especially now with social media and things of that nature, even more so, and just the constant news cycle, you know, and like my daughter, I mean, we don't have cable. We don't really watch TV like that, but I'll definitely let her know what's good. And so she's aware of what's going on in the world, you know, and even my mom is from Newark, New Jersey. So like a big part of her that shaped her identity was like the riots when Martin Luther King Jr. died. So my mother is very pro-Black and very just like, she's a strong woman. And so she imparts that knowledge and that wisdom to my daughter every time they speak, especially now what's going on. She's making sure that, are you watching? Are you paying attention? Like, she's not even talking to me. She's talking to my daughter. Like, are you? And I have to follow that up. You know what I mean? So I think that kids, and obviously everybody's different, but I think that kids are aware of what's going on because I've seen them at the protests. You know what I mean? There was 50,000 people downtown last weekend, and there was a ton of kids of all everything. You know what I mean? And so it was wonderful to see. And just to know that, like, hey, these kids are going to be the ones that are really going to continue to help push change. And even though they're 7 now, in 3 years they'll be 10, and in 3 years they'll be 13. And by the time they're 13, I mean, they'll have a voice that is going to be louder than a lot of people's currently, you know?
I had a completely opposite experience from Jerome. I grew up in DC. I went to a majority minority high school. I think there were like 263 countries represented at our high school.
Oh shit.
It's like 100 languages. It was crazy. I didn't get to see a lot of racism in the DC area, even though it exists, and I see it more now that I'm older. But even with all of that, my education was still lacking a lot of Black history that's being pushed to the front now. Like there's grown ass people that had never heard of like the MOVE bombings or Black Wall Street and Tulsa, like all this stuff. Like people don't know about that because they don't teach it in schools. So I think it's really important that you have to follow up whatever the kids are getting in school with. You have to supplement that with some more of the real shit that you can give them at home. You know?
Yeah, I mean, in
history is so whitewashed.
I mean, growing up. Go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Jesus. I would say, growing up, we learn more about idolizing a person like Christopher Columbus and more than Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. We didn't really like. They made Thanksgiving look like a feast, like a big party, like a big celebration. And then when you grow up, in reality, she was a massacre, and it was crazy. And it's the same thing. Like, I think we only learned about Martin Luther King leading up to the holiday, and after that, it was kind of gone.
Yeah, obviously the 2-year-old and the baby, they're not getting anything. But my older son, he's 5. When we read stories every night, we're trying to include as much diversity as possible. You know, my wife bought them shirts the other day. We got like a Harriet Tubman shirt.
That's dope.
We're trying to like read books. We got books about Gandhi and MLK. I'm not going to drop the like heavy, violent racism information on him yet because he's 5, but I think starting with diversity is a good place to start. And then when they're old enough and it's appropriate, you can be like, hey, this is what's been going on for 400 years here.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Arizona. My bad, Trace. Go ahead.
No. And just to pick up on what Jerome said, it's questions. You know, he's 5. He's asking a little bit of questions here and there. Like when we drove through Hanover the other day, the last Saturday that there were big protests all around the country, there were protests up here. There were about 100 and 200 people out in Hanover in the center square protesting, and we drove through, and he was like, why are they all out here and what are all the signs for? And we explained it.
Got it.
I mean, we didn't have MLK Day growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like Arizona was one of the last places to get it. Remember Public Enemy?
Yeah, Public Enemy. Yeah.
By the time I get to Arizona, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like we my mom would just be like, you're not going to school that day. You know what I'm saying? And we would have to make the day about like MLK and learning and all that stuff until about noon. And then it'd be like, all right, let's just like, you know, whatever. But we knew about it from such a young age that it just was kind of one of those things where you were just like, you just learn how to maneuver as best as possible. Not saying that it always worked in your favor, but you just made sure to know kind of how to move around so that, you know, situations worked out in your favor the best. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But it was always very telling about parents. And that's mainly who you got it from, because I mean, this is like the mid to late 90s, and you know, like hip hop was getting popular and to the point where like white kids were really liking it. And I mean, even in Arizona, the Black kids we're like the super minorities. It's like white kids, Hispanics, Black people, and then like indigenous Native Americans, right? And so, you know, we knew from the jump, like, yo, we're minorities. It's cool. Like, it didn't bother us so much, but you just always kind of understood, like, all right, this is how we got to operate in order just to be successful. And even like, you know, like Trey said, like my mom was an educator, so she always made sure we knew about Black Wall Street, and we knew about Philly, and we knew about just a lot of just atrocities that happen to people of color across the entire spectrum, so that we could be a part of any conversation and be speaking from a place of intelligence and not speaking from just like looking like a victim type situation, you know?
Yeah.
I'm about to say, when I was in school growing up, only black people they talked about in history was Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, slavery, and that's about it. Other than that, they didn't talk about black history. Like a lot of stuff I know now, I didn't learn until like within the past 10 years. Like I never heard about the Black Wall Street. I never heard about June 19th. I didn't even know what that was until like maybe less than 4 years ago.
And they don't.
We got a lot heavier education on that. I had a lot of black teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the three music teachers I had from grade school to high school were all black, and they're all my inspiration. That's the kind of diversity that everyone should like. I'm lucky to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That kind of diversity growing up. I wish everybody had that. And maybe if everybody had that, there wouldn't be so many racist people.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I think it still goes back to systemic racism, because if you know the impact that African Americans have had on this country, it lessens the blow, or it lessens your angle to have to give them less power. In the sense, like I didn't know until I was an adult that African Americans created the street system or the filament for the light bulb.
They invented everything.
Yeah, all these inventions. Like if I had known that as a child, that's empowering. And you feel that empowerment, and it allows you to feel like you can become something.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the more you keep that hidden, the more control you have. And that's systemic. And that all goes back to systemic racism, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's just about, you know, like, unfortunately, I know I can only speak from my situation, me and Kel, but like our mom just realized that from an early onset. Like, yo, we're in Mesa, Arizona. It's 1988, and there are 400 kids in my school. There's 5 black kids. Like, we're gonna have to really do some extra here just to make sure our kids get a fair chance at an education, math, science, all that stuff. Okay, cool, they can get, but when they come through these doors, they need a little bit of extra something so that they're just not lost out here. You know what I'm saying? And even though my daughter goes to a really incredibly racially diverse school, I still keep the same mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not necessarily teaching about Black Wall Street or Juneteenth or all of these things for kids. Yeah, if you're on Twitter now, you can learn a ton of stuff, right? But but in the classrooms, they're not necessarily speaking to it. And so, you know, I don't mind having to go the extra work, because I'm gonna make sure my daughter knows what's in these textbooks. I'm gonna have some extra work for her as well, and then I'm gonna have this sort of cultural work for you that is gonna be able to help you make sure you see yourself in a positive light.
Yeah,
That's great. That's
crazy.
That's a lot of work, but I think it's important. And as I'm getting older and I'm seeing all these parents, you guys, you know, even my sister, you know, a lot of them are losing confidence in the school systems, and they're doing homeschooling now. And it's just like, I keep thinking, if I had a kid, how would I be handling this? You know, with my kid entering middle school or whatever, you know, how would I approach it? Because I don't think the schools really prepare any of these kids for the real world. Like I've been like tutoring my my niece, who's like, you know, about to start high school, probably, you know, later this year in September, in the fall. And you know, just the way they construct essays and writing and how they approach things, it's like they're not really getting the kids ready for shit. And I just kind of wonder, you know, I don't know.
I look at it two ways. My mom was a teacher, and so I understand the struggles that teachers have to go to. And we've all heard the stories about teachers having to buy their own supplies and things of that nature. So there's a lot of support that the teachers don't get, which then trickles down to the students getting a lack of resources and supplies as well, right? Yeah. But in my experience, and I'm about 5 years in, like I'm involved, and as a parent, you have to be involved, because if you sit on the sidelines, you're going to let other people make decisions for you. It's the same as the voting process. If you watch somebody else do it, you can't get mad at the results because you didn't participate. The PTO, they know my name. Hey, that's Mr. Baker. He lives around the corner. Like, you know me. You see me, dog. You see me. Okay, so when it's time for these decisions to be made and things that budgets and and curriculum and stuff like that, you have to be involved as a parent. Like you can't just play the sidelines and hope. Like hope is cool and all,
right.
But when they see you in the meeting and they hear you voicing your concern, and especially if you've informed yourself on the subject, then you'll see your voice make change that is going to benefit the kids, you know.
Absolutely.
So do that. Yeah, be in your kid's life. It's tight.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you got to plant the seed and you got to water it, and you know, you got to weed it. You got to get the weeds out. You know, fertilizer
gets
You have to nurture and tend to that plant and let it grow strong. There's so many so many analogies there with like being involved.
Yo, Jerome, I got a question for you. I was listening to Stephen A. Smith earlier. I listen to his podcast almost every day, and he was focusing today talking about like what's the end game. And,
which podcast?
Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. And he was talking about heavy, like what's the end game? And that made me think like what would be the end game for this situation to where everyone is happy and everyone can come to a like common ground. Like what would you think it would take for us to like what would be the end game? Would it be to just end police brutality? Would it be equal playing field in the workforce?
Everything. So many
Yeah.
things, but everything. I mean, the whole system, like you said, I just had to Google systemic versus systematic just so I was fully aware of the difference between the two. I did that last night, right?
Well, break it down. So, what's the difference? Systematic.
I'm not gonna give you. I'm still working on it, bro. Like you're my man. I'm still working on it.
He's just trying to understand it.
I was trying to get a basic understanding of it, right? But I think that obviously we want to see police brutality stop immediately.
Right.
We want to see the killing of both black men and women stopped immediately. I mean, we're seeing money getting cut from this place, and I think New York just got rid of the stop and frisk or plainclothes officers. New York just abolished that entire department like today.
I saw that.
You know what I'm saying? Right. 19 officers resigned in Georgia, and we've got police morale is low, but they're like hanging black people around the country now.
That's
you know
crazy.
What I'm saying? Like
that shit is
wild.
wild.
It's wild stuff. But then like lesbian and gay rights are saved by like some it's so much going on, yo, that like I think that everybody has a general understanding. We want to just change what this. It's like the foundation of the country is so rotten to the core. You have to dismantle the entire system. Like it's just not. I think one thing at a time is cool, but we got to start chopping down the big branches of the tree, because it's like you get one victory and it's just like, all right, we still got 80 other things to deal with.
Right.
And the light, and it never seemed like there's light at the tunnel. Because right now we're protesting and things are looking great, and there's still people being killed by the police. Dude got shot in his back in Atlanta over the weekend.
Yep.
And we're out in the streets like protesting this.
All the eyes are on them, and this is supposed to be them on their best behavior.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's still wilding out.
So I think it's difficult to find one thing. I think that we all just need common ground is a tremendous idea, and I do really think that is it's tough to find that, because we all have different walks of life.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? But
I think you're going to start to see some of that light at the end of the tunnel and some of that end game when you start to see proportional representation in all areas of life. And what I mean is we're not even close to being proportionally represented in the United States. Here's an example. 97% of CEOs are white. And of that, like 3 to 4% that are persons of color, none of them are women. So when you start, and that's just in the business world amongst CEOs. So when you start to look at proportional representation and you say, okay, well, X percent of the population in the US is black, and you look down the road to 2050 when we're going to be a majority minority country, and by 2050, if we don't start seeing some proportional representation in Congress and in business and in all these other areas of life, you're going to start to see a real big problem. Like if you think it's bad now, it's going to get really bad, because you have to have that proportional representation of people being your leaders. You can't have all one color, one race leaders
right.
with a gigantic minority population underneath you. There should be an equal amount of everybody at the top. And when you see that happening, that's when you'll start to see more of the light. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
I mean, it's something that's gonna take decades to do,
yeah,
and to implement.
It took 400 years to build it up. It's gonna take a hell of a long time to tear it down.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk to you guys about defund the police. Everyone's like, "How could you defund the police?" And I wanted to kind of break it down. And on Twitter and all of these articles I've been reading more and more, we're kind of seeing, you know, a little bit of the truth on how like these police departments are operating, right? By defunding the police, basically these police departments, they need to get audited. You know what I mean? We need to look at the funding and how they're spending their money. You know, there's been a whole bunch of leaks on overtime and how they're taking advantage of overtime. I don't know if you guys saw this. And basically they're, you know, cops are making arrests 30 minutes before their shift is over. You know, they're making these arrests like 30 minutes before their shift is over, just so that they can do paperwork on OT and get that overtime pay while they're doing paperwork.
And yet, and you're only highlighting one little micro problem in a gigantic pile dumpster fire of shit.
Yeah, I mean Derek Chauvin, right? Who you know, obviously he's going to jail. He has like a $1 million pension that he's still going to get. That's still going to get to him. And then some of these cops are getting hundreds and thousands of a year in pension. You know, and it's,
I think if people try to like talk sideways at you or say like defund the police is crazy, my best argument that I usually give is that there's 9 out of 10 things that a cop has to deal with that could be better dealt with by a social worker or by somebody other than a cop. And that's not knocking cops. They have way too much on their plate, A. B, as far as the money goes, with the defund part, is that these police forces have budgets that are astronomical. Like, why does the NYPD annual budget larger than the military budgets of some other countries? Like, that's fucking mental. When a lot of that money should be going into services that uplift the community
and provide
health
resources,
care, mental health, food, education. Like, we don't need people patrolling the streets and beating on black folks. We need money in food, schools, mental health to uplift the, like, here, perfect example, my neighborhood. I live in Hanover, PA. You don't see any fucking cops around here. You never see cops. We don't need them. We don't need the police around here because there's no problems. And the reason there's no problems is that everyone's basic needs are being met. Everyone has shelter and a job and healthcare and food and education. And once all those basic needs are met, like, the problems just somehow magically disappear and you don't need the cops anymore. And for the people that argue, like, shout out to DJ Scene, he's a homie. He came at me with this argument online and was like, what about the crazy meth head that comes running down my street and shooting all the kids? And I'm like, okay, obviously you'd have to call somebody to deal with that. But if you look at the bigger picture, if the crazy meth head lady had healthcare, mental health, and help, she wouldn't exist. You see what I'm saying? Like, that person would not exist in this world if we had all these social programs with money in them to uplift the community instead of pumping it into the police. That's it. I'm done.
No, I was going to say earlier, Kirk, sometimes the average paperwork takes anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours just for simple arrest. So they're really kicking up those things. And I wanted to point out something else. They really bait people into trying to get an arrest, like the guy that got killed at the Wendy's parking lot a couple of days ago. We spoke about it, Kirk, but it was basically they were really, really trying to, like, bait him into doing that breathalyzer just for them to get a DUI arrest and get that overtime and get that extra pay, when they could have just let the dude walk 2 blocks down to his sister's house and could have avoided so many problems. Granted, yes, he was sitting in the driver's seat drunk and with the keys in his pocket, the car was off. You can still get arrested over that. But they were really, 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 you can see on the video, they were really trying to just get that arrest in.
And I got to say, for a drunk guy, he was a pretty calm ass, friendly ass drunk dude.
He was a happy drunk.
Yeah,
because he was talking with them all calm and cool. It was like it was no problems at all. And he was cooperative the whole time.
We should live in a world where somebody calls him an Uber home.
Right.
None of that had to happen.
Or the cops could have been like, "Look, let us drop you home, and then you got to figure out how you're going to get your car in the morning." You know,
right?
Exactly.
Anything but fucking killing him.
I've had friends that got pulled over drunk. They were not black, and they made the person that was drunk call somebody from the house, and they give them 30 minutes to come pick them up.
30 minutes is generous.
Very generous. And this, I'm just like, dog, they could have let this dude walk, like, just fucking down the street.
I've had instances where I was intoxicated driving, and the cop that pulled me over was like, "Look, I know you've been drinking." He was like, "How much have you been drinking?" I was like, "Look, man, I just came from a club. I've had some. Like, I ain't going front. Like, I've been drinking, bro." And he was like, "Well, you're not driving crazy." He was like, "If you can walk that line straight, I'll let you drive home and you're good." And sure enough, I walked the line straight. He was like, "Cool, I trust you. You can go home."
Wow.
Yeah,
you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot
from
10 different angles. You're very lucky.
Yeah, and I should have probably gotten a DUI or maybe gone to jail.
Yeah, drunk tank.
But the guy was just hella generous. It was here in Las Vegas. He was like, "Look, if you can walk this line, I believe you. If you say you can make it home, I trust you." And he let me walk the yellow dotted line. I did it perfectly, and he let me go.
Yeah. Sometimes
there's alternatives.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about why you got pulled over?
I didn't.
Did you ever ask him?
No, I didn't. I was super calm. I had one of my buddies in the car with me. He was a little nervous. I was like, "Look, man, we've been drinking. Let's just be calm about it and figure it out." So I did everything that the officer asked of me, and luckily I was able to get out of there without any problems.
Yeah, sometimes these officers just want to bait, and I mean, it's known that I have a criminal justice degree, and I have a lot of police officers as teachers and professors, and from their own mouths, they told me, "Yo, fam, we got to bait some of these people to make a living because
that's sad. That's really sad.
If there's no crime, like there was this professor that told me that he couldn't solve a murder or robbery murder, and then he knew the guy had did it, but he didn't know how to have him confess that he did it. So he lied to the dude that did it. He's like, "Yo, why did you leave your fingerprints at the tray on the registered tray of the money?" And he goes, "Oh man, you got me." And he didn't have no fingerprints.
Right.
He lied to the criminal, and the criminal just happened to fucking just give in. Mm-hmm. Like it's just one of those things. They do anything necessary, by all means necessary, just to get the arrest and get the job done. So you gotta be careful out there.
Well, I think like in New York, Governor Cuomo just had a press conference. He's really feeling himself because like the New York numbers are down for COVID. But he was also talking about police reform, and actually he was saying that he's initiating this thing called the Reform and Reinvention Collaborative, which is like basically local leaders to sit down with their local police and come up with their own new design of public safety, how it's going to function specifically in each neighborhood. And he's doing this for every city and county in New York State. And we're also seeing in Minneapolis, they announced their intent to disband the Minneapolis PD and invest in community-led public safety. So little by little, we're starting to see some of these changes and some of these conversations. And Governor Cuomo's saying, "Look, I'm giving all of you community leaders and the police departments and the police unions to sit down and really go through what is needed in the communities and in these neighborhoods, what needs to change." And he had a date of April 2021, which is next year. And he really wants to put this shit into action. Wow. And this is New York. Wow. So the fact that he knows that this is a problem, and he's given that speech where he stood with the protesters. He realized that this is a major issue, and it's been going on for decades, and it needs change. And it'd be
interesting to see A, if he follows through on that, and B, how much money he gets from the police union every year.
Yeah. And that's the real issue, right? The police unions, right?
The unions are bad, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen on Twitter the last few years, especially with like the gun rights and gun violence in school. shootings and stuff being pushed to the front of the news, and a lot of the stats you're seeing thrown out online for politicians are who's getting money from the NRA and who's got an NRA A rating and F rating, etc. Now the new stat is which politicians are getting money from the police unions and the union heads, and that's the new stat to throw back in the politicians' face to get them to like follow through on these promises.
And their budget steadily increases every year, right? They're continuously pushing for a larger and larger budget every year,
which is insane.
Yeah. And I think that people have to just sort of, look at what's going to work best for their city and their town and their neighborhood, because obviously there's differences everywhere. Chicago is different than New York, it's different than Austin, it's different than LA, right? So you're going to have to listen to community leaders. And I think you're going to see a lot more problems come to the forefront as you start dealing with police, right? Because like I said, if LA might have a bigger gang problem than, like New Orleans or something like that. So we're going to need different resources pointed towards LA that are going to be able to solve their issues that aren't necessarily like from a police standpoint. We're going to need more gang intervention and things of that nature. Whereas, we might have a different issue, like I said, in New Orleans or in Memphis or Seattle or something like that. So I think that there's an opportunity for police to be defunded and communities to improve their self-policing and sort of set a new standard for how America kind of polices itself. Because I believe there's a city in New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey. Camden. They abolished their police, I believe, last year, and they have a much better sort of relationship, the community within itself. People are doing a good job of self-reporting and things of that nature. Oh wow! Because they trust themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a concept that I think is impossible, but people have to really sit down and look in the mirror and take themselves to task and say, these problems have been here. If we didn't create them, we contributed to them. So how can we stop contributing to them and turn around for the better for everybody? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's one of the goals that, we have to look at. This is going to better everybody, not just the black people in Spanish Harlem or, the Cuban community in Miami or this one or that one. Like we're looking at the betterment of everybody.
Yeah. And then I was going to say that I remember I mentioned this in the past episodes. It's going to take a lot to reform the New York Police Department with having over 36,000 officers in just New York City alone. And
wait, what is that? What is the average number of officers in different cities?
Chicago has a little less than 14,000, and that's number 2. LA Police Department is under 10,000. However, their sheriff department is also roughly under 10,000, so you can double that to 20,000. But New York has 36,000 in just the city of New York.
Right, almost double to triple any other city.
Yeah, so crazy. Reforming all those police officers, and some of those officers should have retired a while ago, but just trying to milk the system. So that's why the budget keeps going up and up. You're having these new guys come in. However, the old guys are not going out; they're staying. Right. So it builds more of a $6 billion whatever the funding is. So
do you guys? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just saying. I just think trust is the biggest issue, and the lack thereof of trust in communities of color. Right. With the police. Right. So like there's 36,000 cops in New York City, as you said. Does that count Long Island or does that not count Long Island?
No, that's just the city of New York, which is basically the 5 boroughs. Wow. Because there's still a police state department. So that's the Buffalo area and up.
So this is not including upstate New York.
No. Upstate New York has roughly under 4,000. So
it's just trust, man. There's no trust.
40,000 officers all of New York.
There hasn't been trust within communities of color in the police for 50, 60, 70 years now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so it's going to be tough in 1 year to try to not reform it. I mean, even just to lay the conversations, to have just a basic framework of saying, okay, this is how we want to start to have the conversation. That's going to take 10 years. 1 year is not fair to the process. It's going to take me more than 1 year to have the amazing body that I want. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm well aware of that. That's cool. 36,000. 36. I mean, that's just, come on. That's wishful thinking in the worst way possible, because when the results aren't there, then people are going to turn around and point the finger and say, hey, we tried, but it didn't work.
I mean,
it's
we'll be lucky to see any difference in our lifetime. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
We might be in the middle of where like the real tension. I mean, I think this is all going to get worse, and I hate to say this because I if there's nothing more scary than seeing a person who had power and it's taken away. Does that make any sense? And then they're made to see like all of these cops who are probably racist, who got off on having that power and abusing that power. If it's taken away, what does that person become? You know what I'm saying? And then who do they gravitate to? You're like, those people are going to gravitate to each other. And I just think these people are going to see, wow, look at all these changes. Like, fuck all this shit that's happening right now. We got to do something about this. The world is going crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because they're getting rid of people like us, when the people like us are the problem, those cops. And I'm thinking something's going to happen. At some point, someone's going to go ballistic. And they're all going to group together. And there's too many. There's too many guns. There's too many bullets. And, guns, that's another issue here in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the right to bear
guns
arms.
Guns are selling out. I mean, bullets are selling out. It's going crazy, even to the point where I'm thinking like, yo, I was talking to Jamie like, yo, I never considered getting a gun. Like, I'm so anti-guns and shit. But I was just like, I feel like some shit's going to go down. You know what I mean? Like, they're fucking hanging people. They're lynching motherfuckers. Like, that's crazy. That's fucking nuts.
They're trying to send a message, obviously, and I think that it's there's so much information that people are picking up on that the stuff is shared immediately. But there's definitely a sense of just like uneasiness in the air. And I've always been told it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Right.
So what we're seeing now, to me, isn't bad. This is the streets, and this is people reacting. Mm-hmm. When could it get worse? It could get worse maybe around election time, right? Like, and maybe after. We're not sure how that's going to play out on either side. So, for me, that's what I'm sort of looking at. Like, summer's kind of on pause. It's not really a whole lot going on in the summer. But we know, after watching voter suppression in Georgia a week ago, that the jig is in. Like, the fix is in. They're trying to get it popping. And they said that they had the most Democrats vote than ever before in the state of Georgia. So people are aware, right? But now it's like, now what measures are they going to try to enact to try to make it even worse when this much is on the line? You know what I'm saying? And I just think that, in terms of defunding police and XYZ, like, these people are going to, you start to see these people like these militia groups and these people who are unofficial, like we're going to police the crowd ourselves and yada, yada, yada. And I mean, like it sucks, man, because I had a friend, we're at the march in DC, we're walking. It's my man, and we're walking, and he literally sees a guy he grew up with across the fence in full army fatigue gear, AR-15 on his hip. He's wearing a mask. His man is right there. He said they looked at each other dead in the face, like stared at each other, just kind of froze. They grew up together, like 10 years, 15 years growing up together.
Wow.
This guy chose to be a cop. My man is a DJ, and he said they just kind of froze, looked at each other, and then just kept it moving. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, my man, you're my man. I know your family, whatever. And now I'm the enemy because I'm marching for my freedom. Like that's crazy to me. You know what I'm saying?
But that gave me shivers, man. That for real, like that's some crazy shit. Like I think this is gonna get a lot worse, and I pray to God that it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like
I'm pretty optimistic actually.
Yeah.
Because just to touch on what you were saying about maybe some of the more violent or insecure people that are losing their grip on their job as a cop or their privilege as a white person, the really, really horribly racist, violent types, I think that's really just a small majority of the population. And when it comes to real, like, boots on the ground, you're not seeing nearly the numbers. Like, here's an example. There's that video floating around Twitter right now of that Klan rally that the cops were like overseeing, and there's maybe like a couple hundred people in that crowd tops.
Right.
But for all the BLM protests and racial justice movements, you're seeing hundreds of thousands of people. So I wouldn't put too much stock in the crazy, violent Second Amendment, gun-toting boogaloo boys or whatever the fuck they want to call themselves. Like,
But TRAYZE,
if we talk about common ground, I think
Yeah.
most everybody wants a peaceful world for themselves and their family.
yeah.
And I don't think that I'm gonna see it get like crazy violent.
But if history's told us anything, especially recent history, all it takes is one crazy white dude and an automatic weapon to do enough damage to really to do enough damage. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It doesn't take thousands and hundreds of thousands of these guys. It just takes one in every city. You know,
I'm optimistic that we've come just far enough that there's enough rational, non-racist people in certain positions of power that are going to keep some crazy wave of gun-toting racists from annihilating everyone.
well, fuck.
I
hope
just
so.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
Listen, I hope you're right.
I hope
right?
so.
But I
Yeah,
feel like
I'm just
going
going
to
to be
be right,
optimistic
man.
about it.
listen, and that's cool. Optimism is dope. But I feel like when the leader or the person that is the president of this country
Yeah.
is not able to articulate anything worthwhile in trying to mitigate or like lessen racial tensions or any of these things that are kind of plaguing society today, I think there's fanboys out there, and I think there's people that want to prove their point, and they want to save, quote unquote, we want to save the white race from being the minority. I mean, I know you said it's 2050 and all that stuff, but I just think there's enough knuckleheads out there who just like they just don't get it, right? Because because unfortunately the problems don't stop at police brutality and we still got kids in cages. We still got like I don't know the last time you guys been to like a Native American reservation, but they're not the best. They're lacking a lot of
And they have the highest rates of COVID right now too.
Exactly. So they've gotten used to living in a way that is so substandard and so subhuman that, what I'm saying, it's disgusting. And so there's so many layers of these problems. And I think that what can happen is that if one person continuously gets the blame, they're gonna start to push back against that. I didn't do it, even if their grandfather, great grandfather did it. And so I think that we're not dealing with people who are. And I'm not blaming you for any of this, TRAYZE. Like you're the man.
No.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sorry, TRAYZE.
No. I totally hear you, and you're absolutely right. But just to touch on your point about like the knucklehead types, that's what I'm saying about the stupidity versus the ignorance. I think the majority of them are ignorant, and when given the right information and when they're educated and they see what's really been happening and they continue to see the police videos and they continue to see the racism and they're just bombarded with it, all the ignorant ones are going to be like, wow, we've really been fucking up. We need to acknowledge our privilege and start to work towards a more equitable country. But the stupid ones, the knucklehead ones, the stupid ones are going to be a lot harder to bring around, and you can't fix stupid, sadly. But I think that of the Trump set, like 60 to 70% or more are just ignorant. And that last 30% are the really stupid racist ones.
Got it.
But it's the ignorance, and it's the willful ignorance that's really bad. It's the people like my parents' age that are like, oh, racism doesn't exist anymore,
I'm not worried about those people. I'm worried about the motherfuckers who are losing their minds on these streets.
The people that I'm saying are the very small, that I think are the very small.
But see, I'm worried about both because the people that are parents' age, they vote, right?
Yeah.
So even if they're not around, they're still voting, and their votes can affect change, good or bad, right? So even if they're not around for what they vote for, it's still going to affect us, my child, children, etc. So being naive and being ignorant and all those things is fine, and I know I touched on it and Crooked and I spoke, and I was like, man, I really don't feel like educating these people.
Right.
And you don't, it's not your responsibility, and you should not have to. Pick up a fucking book or get on Google and look. It's all there.
The problem that I see though is that if people haven't been listening to us for 50, 60, 70 years, and these things have been happening for the last 50, 60, 70 years, why are they going to start to listen now? What's going to change? What's going to make them feel like all of a sudden, oh my God, see, because when my mother was growing up, it was the hoses with the dogs and all that kind of stuff that you see in black and white film, right? In the 90s, you see LA go crazy with the riots, right? Reginald Denny catches a brick, all that. Now you're seeing peaceful protests and Black Lives Matter posted in the middle of the street. And in the same respect, they're still shooting people in the back when they run away. They killed a Black woman at a light in Ohio yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many things that haven't changed. And it's like, what does it take for people to listen? Because at this point, the peaceful protests, they're working. There's funds being cut, et cetera, et cetera. But what else is necessary to create the change? And I'm not saying anybody here has the answers. I'm not putting this on anybody, but I'm just saying as a general rule of thumb, you know what I'm saying? Like, what all can we do to say, all right, I really need you to hear me out this time, dog. Like, this is the time, dog. I really need you to hear me.
I think it's going to change a lot faster than it did maybe in the 70s or the 60s or even the 90s, because media consumption is way, 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 way up. And we got the internet now. So you're constantly bombarded with more and more media all the time. And as long as your media consumption is healthy and you're getting your shit from like a proper source, you're going to see it. And even if you're getting it from Fox News, they're still giving you some of the bad. So I think that the changes are going to happen more rapidly because of the internet age and the media consumption. But we can't let up the pressure now. Like, this cannot stop. I saw some stuff this morning on Instagram. Like, if your timeline looks like it's going back to normal, time to shake the table. Right. Like, people cannot get comfortable. We have to make people uncomfortable. Yeah. We have to make racists afraid again.
I think you're seeing that with basketball. They're not sure if they want to come back, right? That's gonna be even part of our comeback. Is it, if you go to a club, are you comfortable with racism? Are you know what I'm saying? Like, can you go to a club over here and the protest is 2 blocks away, right? Because that's how DC works. Like, 16th Street is where the protests go down. 18th Street is where the party's at. 14th Street is where it's literally right there, right? Yeah. So, you know, like, it's such a nuance, it's such a multi-layered conversation, and it definitely, I think that the one thing you can say is you can't let up, right? Yeah. People are going to need a break, so to speak, but taking a break doesn't mean letting your foot off the gas from the movement. You know what I'm saying? It can just be showing your support in a different way. That you might not be as involved as you were before, because, hey, I just saw a stat where, like, mental health for Black people right now is like, it's out the roof. Like, people's mental health is really suffering as a result of when you turn on your timeline every morning, you're almost looking to see, did somebody else Black die? Right. Or
it's physical health too. I was ignorant on this, and I asked my wife, she's a medical professional. I was like, why is it that Black peoples are more predisposed to, like, having higher incidences of diabetes and hypertension? And she said what she learned in school is that it's from the, like, hundreds of years of constant stress and anxiety. It raises the cortisol levels in their body. Wow. And it causes these chronic illnesses. And it's in higher proportions in people of color because they're under higher pressure, constant pressure, higher scrutiny, more stress, more anxiety. It's literally a physiological reaction. And I was like, holy shit, white people have literally been doing this to Black people for 400 years, and it's literally causing their physiology to change. Like, that's fucking crazy. But people don't know that. They just hear it in the news that, like, if you're African American, you may be at higher risk for diabetes and take your whatever the fuck drug. Like, that's a big problem, man. Like, it's way beyond the mental. The mental's bad now, but the physical's been there apparently. And I just learned this like a year ago.
Oh man. It's a lot, and it's like it's funny because you see all these, like, you know, white people losing their minds, Karens going crazy, and
the Karens, but it's just
Karens gone wild.
Have you seen the meme of the 4 Karens of the apocalypse?
This morning, yeah, I saw it.
That's literally just this year, you know, like maybe months of it, and they can't even take that. But it's like, you know, in our whole society, at the job, or going on your way to your job, you know, going home, your kids, you know, everything in life, it's just everywhere. The racism, the systematic racism is everywhere. It's controlling everything. I mean, my boys they used to get stressed out going to certain neighborhoods. I can't go there. I can't date this girl. I can't get this job. I can't do this. There was so many limitations to almost everything they did. You know what I mean? And
I live where I live now because I knew that if I lived here, I can get a cab home at the end of the night. Like if I was like, oh, if I live in Southeast or Northeast, cabs won't take you over. This is before Uber. I've been living here for a minute, right?
Right.
Oh, cabs as in like cabs won't take a black fare to Southeast.
Correct. So
that's sad, but it's very practical of you to do.
But in the same respect, I'm like, for me, I'm gonna live in Northwest. I live in a nice neighborhood, whatever. And I say, oh yeah, like they're not supposed to ask you where you're going, but they'll ask you where you're going.
Right.
I'm going here. They're like, all right, cool, let's get in. But I know for sure, I've seen it where they won't pick up people who are going to the other side of town, right? Or I've had to have, like women who, like, let's say it's a white girl's a bartender. I'll have her get the cab, then I jump in and I tell him this is where I'm going.
Yo, that used to happen too. That used to happen all the time in the 90s and 2000s. I would have to hail the cab for my crew, and then my crew would just jump out and the cab would either like drive off or they would, you know what I'm saying?
And it's crazy because a lot of the cab drivers are black.
Yeah.
Well, in DC,
that was a big problem in New York in the 90s,
huge,
and early 2000.
Big problem.
Yeah.
It's probably still the same. Yeah.
We have shared experiences, guys.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
It's still the same now, even with the Ubers and the Lyfts. They decline rides where they don't want to go all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
they do that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm not gonna front. I make sure my Lyft rating is crazy though, for that exact reason. Like, bro, I need to get to this gig. And
exactly.
Like, 5 stars, everybody. Everyone gets 5 stars.
Black men, see me. I'm just getting to the money. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a threat to your life, bro. Relax. You know?
Oh man.
So
what do you call it? I think we're gonna wrap it up right now. But yo, Jerome, TRAYZE, thank you so much for taking this time to speak with us, man. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Anytime,
thank
you guys.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of the show for a long time, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's been what, 2 years now?
Yeah, going on 3. Going on 3. Yeah,
almost 3. Okay.
We've been wanting you on the show since like last year, like earlier.
Yeah, we've been trying to work that out.
Every time I come to Vegas, it was like a quick weekend and then I'm out. And I think the last 1 or 2 times I asked you guys were like taping on Mondays, and it's Monday right now, right?
Yeah. There you go.
It is. I have to think about it.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm here in Vegas.
Thanks, TRAYZE.
Well, hopefully, I tell this to Jerome too, man. Like, hopefully, we'll see each other in person very soon, and
man.
on better
days ahead.
Better days ahead. About it, man. Yeah, I like that. I like to end on that. Better days ahead. Let's do it. Jamie, you want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. If you want to watch this video alongside all our brand new videos we drop every Friday, please subscribe to youtube.com/The R.O.A.D podcast. Like, comment, hit the notification bell to be the first to get the video. And
big shout to DJ City. Thanks again, guys. Be safe.
Thank you, guys.
Be safe and take care, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
peace.
Peace.